guys want some plots? Let's talk. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mike, the Bowtie Writer here. Happy Tuesday. We're coming up on NaNoWriMo, kicking off in like a week and a half. And now you need a plot. I want you to know it's okay if you don't have an idea for your plot yet. Because remember, the fundamental axiom of pre-writing says that you are not going to have the idea for an entire story. Instead, you're just going to have the idea for one or two elements of that story. So if you don't have the idea for your plot yet, that's okay. That's just not the area that you started. To that end, what I want to do today is I want to talk about some tricks you can use to try and get the idea for what the arc of your story is, what your big picture plot will be, based upon what it is that you start with. And in my experience, people who are having a hard time coming up with a plot usually have one of two ideas that they've started with. They either have some characters that they think are really neat, but they don't really know what to do with those characters, or they have a really cool setting or some kind of premise. What do I do with it? So let's talk about that first case today, the situation where you have your setting. Settings are powerful and interesting and evocative pieces, and there's a reason why a lot of people start with settings. But if you've got a cool setting, how do you come up with a plot for that setting? The thing that I would suggest when you're starting with a setting is to spend a little bit of time fleshing out the different power structures in your setting, and then as you're doing that world building, what you can do is you can start building different factions inside these power structures. The thing is when you start from these bigger picture factions, you've got these larger casts of characters, and these factions will naturally have tension and friction between them, because when you have any large group of people, they're not going to get along. And if everyone in your setting is already getting along, make them not get along. The point is once you start with your setting and you flesh out the different power factions and you have those factions have different goals, that's where you're going to get the dramatic tension. That's where you're going to get the potential for conflict that in turn will give you a plot. The second trick that I can tell you when it comes to trying to deal with a setting is that you can always boil down at the most fundamental level every character's motivation into two broad strokes. Either they are fighting to change something, or they are fighting to keep something from changing. So if you have a setting that's got a really cool element, make one faction want to try to change that element in some way, and make one faction want to try to preserve that element in some way. It seems almost overly simplistic, but even with just that little bit of material out there, that's enough for you to start building your hooks for conflict on, and that's what can give you a full, complete plot. The second case that can come up is the case where you've got multiple characters who seem neat and interesting and they've kind of jumped off the page, but you don't really know what to do with them. One trick that I learned from screenwriting is what I call opposites, and here's what I mean by this. So when you have a character idea, typically what you do is you have an idea for where the character is either starting or the character is ending. Let's assume for a second for this example that we assume we know where our character is ending. They want to go to LA in order to be an actor. Like that's where they end up. They end up in LA pursuing an acting career. That's where their arc ends, right? When you know where it ends, what you can do is rewind to the flip side of the arc and say, okay, what's going to happen at that side of the arc is the exact opposite. So if at the end they want to move to LA and to be an actor or actress and they want to chase that goal, then the beginning of that story is them absolutely not wanting to move to LA. They have no intention of moving to LA. They hate LA and they don't want to act or they can't act. That naturally sets up a very large progression for them, and bridging that gap is going to give you a plot. Of course, in this example, right, I started with the end and I said, well, all right, I know what the end is, so I'm going to make the beginning the opposite. You could also do it the other way around. If you know where your character is starting, because you've just got an idea, this character popped into your head brand new, and you know kind of where they're at to begin with, you can make the ending of the story the exact opposite as well. So you could just flip that. And in either case, it's that difference that you're setting up at the very beginning that lets you build this big arc between them. Now, exactly how you build it and span that arc, that's up to you. That's your writer muscles. Okay, some people, they don't like the opposites method, and that's totally fine. Here's another technique that you can do. Let's say that you've got a character. You've got a character. You've got this character and they've got a goal, right? So once they have a goal, what you can do is you can introduce another character. Give this character the same kind of goal, just give them completely opposite methods. This one wants to like charge ahead dramatically. This one wants to just slowly scope things out. Those two different methods in trying to achieve that goal will create a lot of interesting dramatic tension to begin with, and that can help you harvest that tension into a full plot. Thank you both for the demonstration. This is a trick that you've seen a lot. Think of any buddy cop movie, any sort of odd couple story, any of those kinds of odd couple stories where you've got one character who does things, you know, by the book, and the other character who's the loose cannon. That creates a dramatic tension because they just have opposite methods. The thing that I want you to take away from today is that it's all right if you don't have a plot yet. That doesn't mean that you don't have a story there waiting to come to fruition. It just means that you got an idea for somewhere else to start with. So for each of those, I just wanted to give you a couple of tips and techniques that I've learned over the years that I've found useful, and I hope that you find them useful as well. Let me know if these ideas helped you out, or if you have any other kind of questions, hit me up down below in the comments, or feel free to follow me out on Twitter. I'm at BowtieWriter, and I'm still there entirely too much. This week's book of the week is Zero Sum Game by Huang. First of all, this is a book filled with delightful, wonderful math puns. The premise is that the protagonist, Cass Russell, basically has math superpowers. Like, she can do vector math in her head so she can dodge bullets, and she knows physics and momentum so that she can take down guys bigger than her in combat. And so she's got these math superpowers that she uses to kind of do sort of mercenary retrieval work. And yet then she meets someone who can kind of scramble with thoughts, and it's her job to try and stop them. As always, if you liked what you saw, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. That does really help me out. It helps get my videos in front of new people. I do really appreciate it. Otherwise, that's it. That's all I have for this week. I'm Mike the Bowtie Writer. I will see you all next time.